Hi friends, in today's video I'm going to talk about this new palette from Lisa Eldridge, the Betty eyeshadow palette. A beautiful cool toned color story, perfect for the spring season. I'm going to walk you through this palette shade by shade, telling you everything about the color and the formula. Then I will give you some more information about application, and after that I will show you some comparisons. I know that some of you have been patiently and eagerly waiting for this review, so let's get started. Betty contains 6 shades. There are no mattes in this palette, only metallics, satins and shimmer shades. The first shade in this palette is called High Maintenance, and this is a beautiful ginger gold with a hint of peach. And Lisa Eldridge describes this shade as a luster shade, which I would describe as a satin shade. I know that some of you think that this shade, this golden peachy shade, is the odd one out in this color story. But this color, this works actually really good in combination with all the other shades. The pigmentation is good, the color payoff is good, pretty opaque in 1-2 layers. I didn't have any fallout issues. So in general, this is just a good luster shade. The color is not that unique, maybe a little bit boring, but it does balance the color story well. So this shade definitely has a function in this color story. Up next, I want to talk about the 2 brown shades in this palette. We have one here in the middle. This one is called Posh. This has a luminous finish. It's a mink shade with silver and pink particles. And the other one is called Talk to the Pow, and this is a cool toned taupe shade, a dark, deep taupe shade, and this is a luster shade. And I have to say that even though this is the same formula as this shade, I do think that this one, Talk to the Pow, looks and feels more as a metallic shade. The other one, High Maintenance, this one is more satin-like. So yeah, they're supposed to have the same finish, they have the same formula, I guess. But for some reason, this one looks more like a metallic to me. And I received a question from my friend Brenda. She was asking me, aren't these 2 browns very similar? Well, the answer is no. These shades are definitely not similar. First of all, the colors are different. A mink is not the same as a taupe shade, of course. But second, the finish is very different. Shade Posh is less opaque compared to the other shade, the Talk to the Pow shade. Posh has a luminous finish, and Talk to the Pow has a luster finish. And those 2 finishes look completely different. Furthermore, Posh contains glitters. Talk to the Pow is not glittery at all. So these 2 browns, they don't look similar, they don't feel similar. They are 2 completely different shades. The question is, of course, do you need 2 browns in a 6-pan palette? Well, in my opinion, no, not necessarily. I think it would have been better if one of the 2 browns was a matte shade, or if one of the 2 browns was exchanged for some other color. But that's just my humble opinion. And this is shade Prima Donna, a deep lavender with a metallic finish. This lavender is definitely not the most unique color. I think we all have lavenders in our collection. But I know that most of us love a good lavender, and this is a good lavender. And I think that this is a shade everyone will love. Well, know, maybe not everyone. If you're not into lavenders or purples, yeah, then just skip this entire palette. But most of us love a good lavender, so I think most of us will enjoy this shade. I have to say this shade has some fallout, and it doesn't really matter if I apply it with my fingertips or with a brush. There's always a little bit of fallout, so keep that in mind. And this lavender shade works incredibly well with all other shades in this palette. It works incredibly well with the duochrome and the lilac pink shade, and of course with those browns, but it also looks very nice paired with that gold ginger shade. This one has a metallic finish and it looks very, very flattering on the eyes. Lavender Queen is the next shade I want to discuss, and this is definitely one of the most beautiful lilac pinks I have ever seen. This is definitely one of my favorite shades in this palette. It has a very special satin metallic finish. It looks so gorgeous applied on the eyes. So stunning. I don't think I have many shades in my collection with a finish like this one. I actually thought that this was a new formula within the Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow collection, but I was wrong. The Vega palette also has a shade with a satin metallic finish. That shade is called Moon Swirl. So Moon Swirl and Lavender Queen have the same finish. Maybe you have the Vega palette, then check out that Moon Swirl shade so you will know what the Lavender Queen feels like. Like I said, I find this Lavender Queen shade a very special shade, one of my favorites in this palette. It looks so good on the eyes, so smooth. And just like the lavender shade, very, very flattering. The satin metallic finish, I find it very, very special. This is a very distinctive shade, in my opinion. You have to build it up a little bit. You can also do like a sheer wash of color with this shade. But if you really want to see the true beauty of this shade, build up the color and you will love, love, love what you see. And last but not least, Starlet, my absolute favorite. This is a duochrome shade. It shifts from silvery green to pink lilac. This contains glitter. It's absolutely, absolutely stunning. This shade is a real eye catcher, and I love to pair this one with this shade, the Lavender Queen. This combo, oh, stunning, stunning, stunning. I already mentioned this shade contains glitter. It's slightly looser pressed compared to the other shades in this palette, and it has a bit of fallout. The shade is very soft, very smooth. I already said I love this shift. It's a silvery green to lilac shift, but it's subtle. So you can definitely wear this shade on a daily basis. It's not in the brand's duochrome. No, not at all. It's way more subtle and I love that. I also want to give you some information about the best way to apply these shades. I've tested this palette thoroughly. I did 5 looks in total, and I've noticed that fingertip application works best for these shades. And I'm not saying here that brush application doesn't work at all, because that's not true. I did apply these shades with my brushes and it did look good. I just think that, in my opinion, for me, it works best to apply these shades with the fingertips. If you don't like to apply shades with your fingertips, then make sure to use flat eyeshadow brushes. Flat eyeshadow packer brushes definitely provide the best application with these shades. But keep in mind that using brushes also means you have more harsh edges. Using the fingertips provides a softer effect. And remember, there are no matte shades in this palette. So in the end, you have to find a way to soften those harsh edges. And even if you do fingertip application, you will always see a little bit of harshness around the edges. And those harsh edges are more obvious when you use brushes. They're less obvious when you use your fingertips, but still, you have to soften those edges. Now, what you can do is just blend those harsh edges. You do not necessarily have to use eyeshadow for that. You can just take a clean blending brush and start blending those harsh edges. But what I like to do is to take a little bit matte eyeshadow to blend out the harsh edges. It provides a more balanced look. So again, I prefer fingertip application with Betty. I just take the shades that I want to use, I put them on my eyes, and then I grab some of the matte shades that I want to use and I blend out the harshness of the metallic shades and those luster shades. That's what works best for me. That's what provides the best eye look for me. Of course, I also have some comparisons for you, and I can already tell you I have found all of these shades in other palettes. Not within the Lisa Eldridge collection. This is unique in the Lisa Eldridge collection. All other palettes are very, very different. I thought that maybe in the Myth palette I would find some similar shades, but that's not the case. Myth is a winter color story, much darker in tone, and it contains violet purple shades, while Betty is way more suitable for spring and it contains lavender purple shades. So these two palettes are definitely not similar at all. So when I was looking for similar shades or palettes with a similar vibe, I wasn't really paying attention to the brown shades and that ginger gold shade in the Betty palette. I think those shades are not very unique. They are very pretty, of course, but I think it's more helpful for you if I tried to find dupes for the lavender, the lilac pink, and the duochrome shade. So I haven't looked into the taupe, the mink, and the gold shade. Let me say that I was looking for dupes for the three other shades. I want to show you the Viseart Paris Reveries first, because that one also has this lavender spring vibe. It's a very, very pretty palette, but the shades are definitely not similar. Paris Reveries contains both warm and cool tones in a variety of finishes, very, very different compared to the Betty palette. It's a very different formula compared to the shades in Betty, and Paris Reveries also contains matte shades and Betty contains no mattes at all. I also had a closer look at one other Viseart palette, and that's also a palette that contains only shimmer shades. So just like Betty, no mattes in this palette, and it's the Koi eyeshadow palette. And I'm going to show you these swatches now. You're going to be surprised how similar some of these shades are. As you can see here, I found dupes for the lilac, the duochrome, and the lavender shade. The lavender in Koi is a bit lighter, but they come close. And the two other shades, well, I guess the swatch says it all, right? Time for my final thoughts. What do I think of Betty? Well, I really enjoy the palette, but I do think you have to consider some things before making a purchase. First of all, the color story. There are some shades that are very special, and then I'm talking about that duochrome shade Starlight. That one is very special, very pretty, very unique. And also the pink lilac shade. That one has such a beautiful finish. I don't have shades like these in my collection. It's absolutely stunning. I love that pink lilac shade. I love that duochrome shade. The lavender is very pretty too, but it is possible that you have similar shades in your collection. The two browns aren't that unique. They really balance the pops of color in this palette, and you need that to create a good look. But two browns, not really necessary. And then we have that warmer shade, that golden ginger with a touch of peach. And that one is very pretty too. I really like that shade, but like I told you earlier, it's not very unique, it's not very special, but it does add something to this color story. So that's a good thing. Formula wise, well, I've told you there are no mattes in this palette. You are working with metallics, satins, those luster shades, and glitter sparkly shades. That's what you're working with in this palette. And I think that most of us, like the regular consumers, the regular users of eyeshadow, enjoy a good matte in a palette. So I kind of dislike it that there is not a matte shade in this palette. And yes, it's no problem for me to use a other palette, to use mattes from some other palette to combine with Betty. No, that's not a problem at all. But I know that most of you find it way more convenient if there is at least one or two matte shades in a palette. I think that if one of the two browns in this palette would have been a matte shade, you and we would enjoy the palette more. However, this still really is a very good palette. And if you don't mind bringing in one extra palette with mattes, or just take a matte from some other palette you really like, if you don't mind doing that, you will certainly enjoy Betty very much. Also, it's not necessary to bring in matte shades. You can do a look without matte shades. If that's something you like, I am pretty sure you will absolutely enjoy the Betty palette. Furthermore, Lisa Eldridge quality is good quality. You do not have to worry about that. If you do not have palettes from Lisa Eldridge and you're considering buying this Betty palette, so Betty will be your first Lisa Eldridge palette, I am sure you will enjoy the formula. Lisa Eldridge just doesn't disappoint. She makes good quality products. Overall, I'm pretty happy with my purchase. I think I'm gonna get a lot of use out of Betty, especially now during spring. That's it, my friend, the review of the Betty eyeshadow palette. I hope I've given you enough information to decide whether you want to purchase the palette or not. I'm wishing you a lovely day and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.